Turning points in life rarely come with grand gestures. More often than not, they arrive in quiet, unexpected moments when you're standing under a street lamp lost in thought, when you catch a glimpse of yourself in a stranger's eyes, or when one of the most famous people in the world looks at you and, with just a few words, unravels the knots of your destiny. This is one of those stories, a story about a dream, a voice, and the moment everything changed. She had been searching for a path, unsure of where she belonged. Music had always been her passion. She wrote songs, sang melodies in her bedroom, and dreamed of sharing them with the world. But every time she tried, a voice in her head whispered, "You're not good enough." And so, her dreams, fragile as glass, began to crack in the palms of her hands. That night going to Beyonce's concert wasn't just about seeing an artist she admired. It was a final attempt to find something, anything, that could reignite the light she felt slipping away. She had worked for weeks to afford the ticket, lined up at dawn to secure a spot near the front. As she stood in the crowd staring at the stage, only one thought echoed in her mind. If only I could be like her. If only I could share my songs too. The moment the stage lights burst into life, time stood still. Beyonce emerged, and the entire stadium erupted into a wave of energy. Every soul in the crowd was mesmerized. But for this young woman, the moment meant something more. It wasn't just admiration. It was recognition. As if the woman standing under the spotlight was the voice she had always heard inside but never had the courage to trust. When the concert ended, the crowd slowly dispersed, but she remained frozen in place. Hundreds of fans were already gathering backstage, hoping for a glimpse of the star. But she wasn't just there for an autograph or a photo. She was clutching a small, folded piece of paper, one that held words she had never been brave enough to say out loud. By chance, or maybe by fate, one of Beyoncé's security guards noticed her. After a brief moment of hesitation, they let her in. Her breath caught in her throat as she walked down the hallway. Just moments ago, Beyoncé had seemed untouchable, larger than life. But now she was only a few steps away. And when their eyes met, what she saw wasn't just stardom. It was warmth. It was understanding. It was the reflection of a journey not unlike her own. Beyoncé smiled and stepped closer. "Hey there, what's your name?" she asked, her voice both gentle and commanding. The young woman struggled to speak. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded. Finally, she took a deep breath and held out the small piece of paper. I write," she whispered, "but no one wants to listen. Sometimes not even me." Beyoncé unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the words. A moment passed before she exhaled deeply and looked up. "You know," she said with a knowing smile, "I used to feel the same way." The young woman's eyes widened in disbelief. How could that be? She was Beyoncé, one of the biggest stars in the world. How could someone like her have ever felt invisible? Beyoncé continued, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "People might not always want to listen, but that's not the real question, is it? The real question is, do you believe in what you have to say?" I always knew there was a voice inside me, and sometimes I tried to silence it. Sometimes other voices drowned it out. But one day I asked myself, if I don't tell my own story, who will? Something shifted inside the young woman. The doubts that had held her back for so long suddenly felt smaller. Beyoncé held her gaze for a long moment before adding, "You have a voice. You have a story. Now, do you have the courage to share it with the world?" That moment changed everything. For the first time in years, she felt something stronger than fear. Determination. Telling her story, singing her songs. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a responsibility. Because maybe one day, her story would inspire someone else the way Beyoncé's had just inspired her. Some encounters last only minutes, but their impact lasts a lifetime. That night, she didn't just walk away from a concert. She walked away from her own doubts. And Beyoncé's words would echo in her mind, not just as lyrics to a song, but as a call to action. Everyone carries a light inside them. The real question is, how brightly will you let it shine? Maybe years from now, someone else would hear this young woman's story, just as she had heard Beyoncé's. Because inspiration is a cycle, passed from one dreamer to the next forever. And so sometimes all we need is one word, one moment, one voice to push us forward. And sometimes that voice belongs to someone who has already walked the path we're just beginning. But what true,